Engagers, this is Professor Game, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who bring us the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration to help us in the process of using games and gamification in our daily lives, for example, to learn what we are teaching. And I am Rob Alvarez. I work at Ironhack, teach at IE Business School University, and so much more, and host this podcast. If you have an extra second, please go ahead and subscribe for free to our email list at professorgame.com/subscribe. Hey Engagers, welcome back to another episode of the Professor Game podcast. We have with us today a special guest called Adam. But Adam, before we get into your intro and all those things, we need to know, are you prepared to engage?
Absolutely.
Let's do this because we have Adam Collins with us today, who started off as playing games with some coworkers to pass the launch hour and spun into so much more. And that is why he's here. He's going to be talking about those experiences because Adam started playing the Settlers of Catan with 4 or 5 coworkers from his division. Word got out, many things started happening as well. And he started playing those games. Everybody knew within a few months, the group started to grow to about 10 people. More games were introduced, more members joined. New members came from other divisions of the company. And after 3 years, the group had grown to over 20 people, over 24 games, and even spread to other buildings on the campus. This led Adam and Tim to start creating and testing their own game designs with their coworkers. From this was born Bearded Board Games. And again, as Adam's passion kept growing, he wanted to learn more about games that could be played over lunch hour. He read books, he listened to podcasts, he joined Facebook groups, and decided that other people should be playing games with their coworkers as well. And voila, Eat Lunch and Board Game came to life. It was an idea that took a long while to get off the ground. And COVID-19 pandemic gave Adam the time to focus and launch this podcast. And if you have any ideas of who to interview within the industry or game that they should be playing and reviewing, please send Adam an email. So Adam, is there anything that we're missing that we should mention before we start the interview?
No, I hit everything. Absolutely. If you have any game ideas that can be played at lunch or we should be playing at lunch, let me know.
Looking forward to that. Definitely. So Adam, can you tell us, what does a regular day, week, whatever you want to go for, look like? What does it feel like to be Adam nowadays?
Sure. I am by day and by trade, I am a pre-construction manager for a construction company. And before that, I worked at a large global company, and everything was very siloed and everybody worked in their own little division. And even with the company I work for now, we were 2 companies that have kind of come together. And so you had the 2 different sides of the office. And when I started there, it was kind of like the dark side. There was my side and then the other side. And when they hired me, they're like, well, we really need to build better lines of communication with the other side. And I'm like, I got this. I can totally do this. And so I started playing games with the other side. So when I get to work, got to stop off and get the coffee first, or the day might as well not even begin. So grab my cup of coffee, make my rounds, say hi, good morning to everybody. And then, like I said, I'm a construction pre-con manager. So I review my emails and attend a few meetings. But then, when it's time for lunch, people from both divisions come together in the lunchroom, sit down, and we play that day's game. And then we have a traveling trophy. So whoever wins that day gets the trophy. Yesterday I lost, so the person that won, I forgot to take the trophy to the lunchroom. So she came to my office, took it right off my shelf. She's like, I think you owe this to me. And I'm like, yeah, you won, you get the trophy. And, that's kind of my day. Then I finish out the day and then come home and probably play a handful of games with my kids before they go to bed. So
gaming, and of course, working as well.
Sure. I hate when, the day job gets in the way of board games.
Amazing. So Adam, can you tell us of a time of, one time where you were trying to do this thing that you do with board games and lunch, or board games and companies, right? And you were trying to do something, and things just didn't go your way. We were going north, things went south. Can you tell us about your favorite fail or first attempt in learning, and what do you learn from that? We want to be there at the ground level. You want to listen to that story. We want to learn from you. Can you tell us that story?
So yeah, when we were playing, like I said, a couple of companies ago, we were playing a game of social deduction, and it got a little heated, let's say, and people started accusing people of other things that kind of like it left the game, let's say, and tempers got a little high, and there was a lot of shouting and screaming, and we finally got through the game. And a high up manager at the company, pulled me aside and said, "Hey, you gotta keep that game under control. And we don't mind that you play games at lunch, but you can't be screaming and yelling at each other like you did today." So
Go
we actually
figure.
had, yeah, right. So we actually had to ban that game for a while, that specific game, to keep it to keep the
Keep it civil.
to keep it civil. Exactly, that's the best way to put it, to keep it civil. And so that game had to take a back seat. Social deduction games in general, I find, in the office setting, they tend to do that. And so you have to make sure you have the right people, I guess, in the right game. So
I was going to ask because I've heard before, and again, I have mixed experiences, or maybe I would say third party experiences in a way, with social deduction games. Because one of the things that somebody told me once was, playing board games and games in general, that's amazing, gets people together, blah blah blah. Things we know and will be discussing today. That's why I say blah blah blah, not because it's not important, right? But social deduction games imply that you have to do poker faces and you have to trick people. And essentially you have to lie to your coworkers in many ways, right? So you're tricking people in this or that way. So there is a risk that people might be ticked off in the wrong way. So that person's advice, and I'm trying to remember who it was saying, like, play any games except for social deduction games. And like 2 weeks after that, one of my coworkers, actually a director of development where I used to work, he organized a Among Us online play during the pandemic with his team, right? Him being the boss and the other 6 or 7 developers he had. And I was like, dude, are you sure that's what you want to do? Yeah, no, the game's amazing. People love it. And they actually played it and they had a nice time, and, they didn't scream at each other or anything. So again, I have the experience and I mean, honestly, once you think about it, you don't think about it before, right? But once you think about it, it's like social deduction is kind of about lying to other people, and you want to build trust. So maybe it's not the best idea. But then I have that experience with developers, and maybe, I don't know if it's because we're sort of a different species or something.
Maybe.
Does it make sense? Like, how does it hit you when I say this?
With social deduction games, you have to be. I mean, coup is one thing where you're just trying to bluff your way to victory. But it's when you get other games where you, like you said, you're lying and you're accusing people of things, and that's when tempers start to flare and shouting starts to happen. And with the game that we were playing, it's like you can't have that in an office. You don't want to promote lying and shouting at each other in an office setting.
Amazing, good experience. And for everyone out there now, board games, yes. Social deduction games in particular, probably not for the office. Keep it for home and for trying to destroy marriages and friendships and that kind of stuff. Not for the office, right?
Yeah Other things, destroy other things.
Amazing. Thank you for that, Adam. And how about we go for exactly the opposite? One of those times when you said, we're going to use board games for this, and whether it was the first attempt or the nth attempt, actually things went well. We want to be there with you, maybe listen to some of the success factors. We want to be there in that story and learn from your experience, basically.
Yeah, so where I worked, we had a big social committee, and I worked on a campus. So there was about 5 or 6 different buildings on campus, and we had a centralized dining facility. So I decided, hey, you know what, we should try to do a game night after hours and see if we can't pull people from other buildings over. And so we did. I partnered with a friendly local game shop, and they helped bring over some demo copies and promo copies and stuff like that of other games. And we promoted this for, at least a month or two. And we had about 20 people total, which at first I was kind of disappointed, but they're like, hey, 20 people and, you're in from different buildings that don't even know you, that just showed up because you offered pizza and board games. And, it was a good night. It was a lot of work for and at first, like I said, I was kind of disappointed in the turnout, but it was the friendships that we got from that, and having people from all over the campus show up, not only lines of communication, but we found out that this division needs help in this aspect, and that's what my division does. So we started building pieces for this other division that we didn't even know we could build pieces for. And then vice versa, they knew they could, you build that line of communication, you build that contact, that person that the person that socially. Now somebody in your department's like, hey, I wish I knew somebody over in that department. And you can just be like, hey, I know somebody over there. It really was amazing to watch these other employees, these other divisions come together. And when we started doing it, and then we started meeting on Fridays, just everybody we had a handful of us from all over the campus. We'd meet on Friday afternoon at the centralized dining facility, which is funny because it's not central on campus at all. But then more people would see us playing, and then I saw other groups start playing board games, and then with their group of people, and then we tried to infiltrate those groups of people, and then all of a sudden you have people from all over this campus that don't have anything don't have any reason to know each other at all, and now we know each other and we're playing board games together, and it was awesome.
Amazing. That sounds amazing. And is there anything that you would say, like, I think that we did this, and this right, or just this thing, we did it right, and that's why we got great results? Is there anything like that?
Yeah. So I read a book by Ellie Dix called The Board Game Family, and that's a funny story in and of itself. But in that book, she says to like normalize it, like just have the games out, and that way they're not these weird things that are on the shelf, or hidden away in a closet. Like, they're out, they're accessible, people can see them. And that's kind of what worked for us, especially on the campus-wide level, is just playing out in the open right there in the middle of this cafeteria. And you draw people in who are curious, what's this group of people doing? And you walk by and you look, and can I play next week? Absolutely, you can play next week. Shoot me an email and I'll get you on the email list. And that's what I think worked out better than anything, was just having the games out in the open. Because if you kind of hide off in a conference room or over in the corner, people miss it. But if you're right in the middle, right out there in the open, and you kind of normalize it, you get more people wanting to join just because they see you having fun at lunch.
So a big advice would be having them visible in a way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yep. Yeah. That's it. Wow. You say it, and once it's said, right, it sounds like, well, duh, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's that, because when I started playing, we played in a conference room in my building, but everybody knew what was going on in that conference room. And then it kind of became like, oh, that conference room is where Adam and the gaming people are playing. But when we started playing at the cafeteria, there isn't a conference room, it's just a big cafeteria. So we're like, well, it looks like we're sitting down right here in the middle. And then you would just see people walk by and, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, playing a board game. And, they look at you kind of weird at first. And then they're like, wow, I want to play. And you're like, well, absolutely. Sit down, have a seat. Let's do it.
Amazing. And talking about that, well, actually, let's jump into the next question. And if it's not answered there, I'll ask it for sure. And it has to do with playing during lunch and not other times. But before we get into that, and I'm going to ask this as if it never happened to you, but now we know it has, right? Like, if you were moving perhaps to another company and you wanted to implement this, and of course you even have a podcast about it, do you have any process, any methodology? Like, how should somebody like yourself or even somebody else go about implementing this in their own company? How would you recommend them to do this? Do you have, again, a process and methodology? How do you do it?
Well, so in this latest company, it basically, as people get to know you, I mean, if you're already in the company, people probably already know you. And if you haven't mentioned you play board games, that's on you, but you should definitely mention you play board games, because there's a lot of people out there who do, and there's a lot of people out there who want to, because they know that this board game renaissance is going on right now, that there's a lot of board games, and it's not just the old school Milton Bradley and Parker Brothers games and the Hasbros. It's a whole new animal than it was, 50 years ago. So I would just kind of casually mention that, I play board games. I design my own board games, have a podcast about board games, and people look at you like, man, why are you in a construction company if all you do is board games? But I kind of just make it known. And then I've got a couple games that I think are the best. And King of Tokyo, I think, is the best game to get a board game group started, because the game is so accessible. It's got a good, colorful, fun table presence. And from there, you can branch off. But I think if you can just find one or two people that are willing to give it a try, and King of Tokyo is the way to really start a good group, because it's, like I said, it's very accessible. It's very approachable. It's not a complex game. It's just Yahtzee, right? And most people know Yahtzee. And from there, you can branch out to whatever. I mean, like you said, I've got a whole podcast where I've done 40 something episodes of games you can play at lunch. And then, there's even more out there that I haven't even touched yet.
Sounds amazing. So you're suggesting that is, I mean, of course, talking about it so that everybody or the people who might be interested at least get to know about it. And then you were suggesting a specific game. Am I right?
Yes.
And that game was King of
Tokyo.
King of Tokyo. Yeah, I was trying to remember what it was. King of Tokyo. All right. Amazing. That sounds like pretty specific advice. I like it because sometimes people are afraid of, this worked for me, maybe it doesn't work for somebody else, so I'm just going to give something very general, and you sometimes end up with some advice that is so general that, it doesn't apply to anyone. So getting this like very down to the ground, down to very specific stuff, I think it'd be very useful, and especially for the audience, if you're looking forward to something like this, it is, I think, I think you have a good chance of starting your own board game group at lunch at your office. So go for it. Definitely go for it.
Yeah, I mean, King of Tokyo, because people know Yahtzee. King of Tokyo is a very easy step to take. And, the other one is find a different version of Clue, because most people know the game Clue, but you can get, there's a bunch of different versions out there. Like Discover the Secrets is a version of Clue from a couple years ago, maybe 10 or 12 now, I don't know. But again, it's Clue, but there's another element to it. And so as you start, that's what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to level set. Find something that everybody knows and take it up a notch. And then from there, you can, this game. Well, how about this game? And you just kind of slowly build. You have to know the people you're playing with and get their comfort level. And then you can build on top of that.
Very sound and smooth advice for sure. So thank you for that, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick break before we continue with this episode. If you've been enjoying this podcast, I would really appreciate if you share it with your friends and family and on social media. On Twitter and Instagram, it's at RobAlvarezB and the hashtag ProfessorGame, all one word. And in Facebook, you can find the Professor Game page. Thanks in advance for your engagement.
And Adam, what would you say is, if somebody was to start their, board gaming hobby at work, whether it's through lunch and board game, or however they want to go for it, do you think there's some sort of best practice, something that you say, well, if you do this thing, it's probably going to end up at least in a better situation for you?
Well, like I said, you need to start with, I don't want to say low expectations, because that's not right, but you need to start with something simple. I wouldn't bust out some heavy, crunchy Euro that takes you the entire lunch hour to explain, and tomorrow we'll play, thank you for your time today, and now you kind of know what we're doing, and maybe tomorrow we'll actually get you to roll the die or play a card or something. But like I said, start with something accessible. Heck, if you got to start with Yahtzee and just get people together to play a game of Yahtzee, do that. I mean, that's, like I said, I started with Clue at my last company. The company I'm with now, we started with King of Tokyo. But Clue and King of Tokyo were the games we started with at my last company. because people know Clue, people know Yahtzee, and so just showing them, hey, there's another version, if you will, of this game, or somebody took the same idea and put monsters on it, and now you're battling each other over the city of Tokyo. Like, that's what I did. Is just you know how to play Yahtzee. You roll the 6 dice and a couple re-rolls, and then score it. Only this time, instead of scoring 3 sixes, you're trying to score 3 claws and hit everybody. So,
there you go. Amazing. There's actually, you were saying that, and it brought to my memory a game that we've recently gotten into very much. It's more of a card game, which is Monopoly Deal. So it's not Monopoly, but you kind of know what things are about. There's properties, purchasing properties, there's money. I mean, it's very different. You play it very, very quick. It's different, but maybe it could be something that's accessible as well, right?
Yeah, people know the Monopoly. They may be a little scared of it. Monopoly takes forever. Well, not if you play by the actual rules. That's my first response to that. Are you playing with the auctioning off? Are you playing with free parking, paying money? See, if you're not playing by the actual rules, Monopoly will take a while.
Makes sense. So I was going to ask the question before, but I think it's a good time actually now. You say lunch board games. Is there a reason why, lunch and not, right after work, or come early into the office and let's play some board games, or let's meet over the weekend and play some board games? Like, why over lunch? What makes it special for you?
Well, for me, a lot of it is it's just a time to get away from work, right? You're already there. Doesn't require you to do anything. Like if you're asking people to come in early, then people have got to get up early and come into work early, or stay late. They may have kids, or they have to go to, a baseball game or a dance recital or something like that. But at lunch, you're already at the office. And it's just, for me, it's a 30 to 60 minute escape from my day job, right? It's a way to get away from staring at my computer screen, getting on Zoom calls, whatever it is that you do during your day job. It's something that you're already there. You're already doing it. You're already taking a lunch hour. Let's make it fun. You can sit there on your phone and scroll YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, but how about we battle over Tokyo as monsters? Like, let's just sit back. Like I said, you've already got the captive audience, right? They're already there. Now you just got to get them to do something different.
And now it's my curiosity asking you, because I completely agree with the argument. It was kind of what I was thinking, but I was thinking that maybe like whether there was something different, or you would say maybe, I don't know, like lunch or dinner is also good. But anyways, the other thing is out of me, and it's because of the kind of person that I am. And this is going to say something about me more than anything else. But, well, first question is, do you do it when you're having lunch, right after lunch? How does that look?
Oh, normally while eating lunch.
While eating lunch. Okay. So the question is very pertinent. Being an obsessive person like me with everything, basically, are you not worried that your board game will get screwed because of a drink, because of the food? How do you get over if so?
It's a good question. It is. So honestly, we're all adults. And so I haven't had, knock on wood. Let me knock on wood there. Yeah, we haven't had anything really get ruined yet, because everybody's kind of respectful of it, and, we have a lot of napkins. And so it's funny because people don't tend to bring a bunch of messy food in, because they want to respect your game just as much as you want them to. And so we're more aware, I guess, in today. And also people tend to drink a lot of water out of water bottles, so they don't tend to spill a lot.
True.
But yeah, we don't do a lot of Cheeto eating while playing games.
Exactly. That's exactly the kind of thing that got me going on that question, because when it's at home and we have people over, it's like, oh, let's play a board game. And my wife is like the best hostess, at least that I know. She's always like offering food and drinks, and that's the way to go, right? But then it's like, well, what do we offer so your hands are not yellow from your Cheetos, right? And there's where it starts getting complicated, because she's like, yeah, people are going to be careful and it's fine. I'm the one who's obsessed with, being careful with that and how the cards are going to get screwed. And it's a hoop to go through when we're playing board games, for sure. But I enjoy every minute of it anyways.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. So now we've gone through some of the questions and you have a bit of the vibe of the podcast. Is there somebody that you would like to listen to answering these questions, like a future guest for Professor Game podcast?
Absolutely. Look into Ellie Dix. She wrote that book on how to get people to play games, your family, how to get them away from the screen and get them back to the table. I found that book very eye-opening. I read the first, I don't even know, 4 pages, 5 pages, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to meet this lady. So I did. So, yeah, she's got a lot. She's also a game designer. She's won a lot of awards. But she also, like I said, knows how to get people interested in gaming. And, yeah, and she'd make a great guest.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Definitely, she sounds amazing. Perhaps we'll have her in the future as well. And keeping up with the recommendations, is there a book that you recommend an audience like this one? Again, think of people who are probably enjoying games a lot and are thinking of using them for something beyond just the entertainment they bring.
Oh, man, I got a whole shelf of books right here next to me about board gaming. Like I said, Ellie Dix's book is really good. That one is The Board Game Family. Then, one that I really thought was fun was called Family Games, The 100 Best. It was compiled by James Lauder. And it's just 100 games that are kind of on that family level. And it's not like Life and stuff like that. It's like, games like King of Tokyo. But the book's a little old. I've told James he needs to write a new one called The 100 Rest. But it's a good book that just has a lot of really good medium weight game ideas that are pretty approachable, really, and could help bring more people to the hobby and also to you to play with.
Sounds absolutely amazing. Thanks for that couple of books recommendation. And again, we've been talking about recommendations from other people. In your case, in the board game arena, what would you say is your superpower? That thing that you do at least better than most other people?
Get people to play games. People that say no to me, that's just a wall. I'll get through it. I'll get over it. I'll get around it. I'll go under it. I will break it down. It may take me a little while, but I'll get to you.
You get to get people to play games, essentially.
That's my goal.
Amazing. Amazing. That's a very useful superpower, especially in that thing that you do, which is getting people to play board games over lunch at work. Yeah. And this is probably going to come out as a difficult one, especially for somebody like you. What would you say is your favorite game?
I saw that question on your list and I'm like, man, it's a rough one. My favorite game is probably the Settlers of Catan, as far as the game that opened my eyes to the industry, that there's new games out there. And these are not the games that you grew up playing. These are not the games that your parents grew up playing. So Catan really was eye-opening to me. But also one of my favorite games, then I guess ironically or coincidentally, probably coincidentally, that cannot be played in a lunch hour, though, is the Champions of Midgard. It's just a lot of fun worker placement, a lot of dice rolling, no need for chairs, everybody standing up cheering. It's a hilariously entertaining game that there's something, like I said, there's just something about it. And it's just a very fun 90-minute experience.
Yeah, 90-minute doesn't sound like lunch, except if you're in Spain, where it's actually 2 hours. It's kind of crazy.
I'm in the wrong country.
Many companies, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it does have its benefits for sure. I mean, like being able to play longer board games. but it can be a little bit too much. It also means you leave later, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And then there's depending on the job, there's other people who actually they have in Spanish, it's called horario partido. So it's like broken schedule, essentially. That's not a good translation per se, but it actually expresses what it means, right? They work from let's say 9 to 1. Then they have a 4-hour break.
Nope.
And then they work for the other 4 hours. It's like,
holy cow.
It's super, super, super. I mean, for me, it would be almost impossible, to be honest. After 4 hours going back to work, it's like,
yeah, nope. That's a half day for me.
Yeah, literally.
See tomorrow.
Amazing. Amazing. So, Adam, we're reaching the end of the interview. But before, of course, we take off, we want to know where we can find out more, of course, about you, the work that you do. If you have any final piece of advice, any final words for the audience before we say it's game over?
Yeah, my website's eatlunchandboardgame.com. There's plenty of all my contact information's there. You can email me, check out my LinkedIn, Facebook page, all that for the podcast. The other thing is podandbox.com/eatlunchandboardgame. There you can just pop on, leave me a message, ask me questions. It's a pretty open social way to reach out to me. Game recommendations, interview recommendations, anything of the sort. Feel free to drop me a line because I've had listeners suggest games, and then hopefully I can find a copy I can borrow. But if not, what's another game to my collection,
Ha. Amazing. Any final words?
No, other than don't be afraid to go out there and, like I say, board games build bridges. Don't be afraid to go out there and build some bridges with some coworkers and, reach across that aisle to the other side, to the dark side, to the people that you don't know, but you see them, you don't even know who they are. They're people too, maybe, I think.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Adam, for sharing your expertise, your knowledge, your understanding, all those things that you've done, bringing people together through board games, right? These are not even, games that are bespoke, made to have a specific objective or anything. They're actual, regular, normal board games that actually bring people together and get offices perhaps to work a little bit better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well,
better
it
communication.
does. Yeah, it makes the office smaller, right? Now it's not so big, people everywhere.
Amazing. That's it. So thanks again for all of that, Adam. However, at least for now and for today, it is time to say that it's game over. Hey, Engagers, thank you for listening to the Professor Game podcast, and I hope you enjoyed this interview with Adam. And, of course, if you have questions that you'd like to ask future guests, please go to professorgame.com/question and ask that question. If it is selected, it'll come up in a future episode and you will get your answer live from one of our guests. That, of course, makes sense for that question. And, of course, remember, before you go on to your next mission, remember to subscribe or follow for free using your favorite podcast app and listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.